The eel was terrible, and his father ate all of it to prove a point. "It's the last of the season," Hessam said, which was what he said about everything he did not want to waste. "It has been the last of the season since Vane," his mother said, "which is how you know it's really the last of it now." "Which is how I know Dus has had it in a barrel since Vane. Dus is a good man." "Dus is a good man with a barrel," Aunt Fessy said, and put her fork down on the cloth without wiping it, which she did every year, and which Marn cleaned out of the linen every year. And his father said Fessy had been raised by wolves, and Fessy said she had been raised by their mother, which was the same thing said politely, and Bell laughed so hard he had to put his head down. Marn came in with the second course and pretended not to hear any of them, as she always did when she carried food in. "Marn," Bell said, "was there more eel?" "There was." "Is there more eel?" "There is not." "Marn." "There is not more eel. There is not going to be more eel, and if you tell your father I said so, I will call you a liar in front of the house." "I heard that," his father said. "You were intended to," Marn said, and put the goose down in front of him and went out. The goose was better than the eel. Everything was better than the eel. There was a dish of rye and brown butter, and a dish of the brine pickles that only Quill ate. And Quill ate them the whole evening, one after another, with the expression of a boy performing a duty. And there was beer, and there was the good beer for his father and Tolt. And at some point Selah had put a hand over her glass, and Bell's uncle had filled it anyway, and she had let him. It was cold outside and warm in here. The lamps had been lit early because the fog had come up the cut in the afternoon and got into the yard and then into the windows, and the far end of the table had stopped being a place and started being a colour. There were 9 of them at a table built for 20. Bell sat where he always sat, at his father's left, with his back to the fire, which meant that by the second course his shoulders were hot and his shins were cold, and he would not have moved for money. Marn was one of the 9 because Bell had asked her at the door. "It isn't proper," she'd said. "There's a chair." "There's 11 chairs. That's not the same as it being proper." "Sit down, Marn," his mother had said from the far end, not looking up, and Marn had sat on the front 2 inches of the chair, with her collar done all the way to the top, and she had got up 9 times since to fetch things nobody had asked for. Selah had made him a muffler. It was grey and it was enormous, and Bell put it on at the table and wore it through the whole of the goose, sweating cheerfully, while Selah told him he could take it off, and he said he couldn't, and she said he could, and he said it was his birthday and there were rules. Quill gave him a bird's skull he had found in the yard behind the annealing shed. It was very small and very clean, and Bell held it up to the lamp. "It's a gull," Quill said. "That's never a gull. A gull's the size of my boot." "It's a young one." "How do you know it's a gull?" "That bit," Quill said and pointed with a pickle. "What's that bit called?" "I don't know what it's called." Quill put the pickle in his mouth. "But a gull's got it." Bell asked him where he'd found it and what he thought had happened to it, and Quill, who was 15, told him at length. And Quill's ears went red, and Bell's mother caught his eye down the table and did not say anything. Marn had had his boots resoled. She said it as though she were reporting a fault. "Both of them," she said. "Both boots?" "Both soles, Bell." "Marn, this is the best present I have ever been given." "It's boots." "It's both boots." Fessy gave him a purse with money in it, which was the only present in the room that had not been made by somebody at the table, and she leaned over while the plates were going round and said "close" in the voice she used for saying things she had decided in advance to say. "Spend it on something stupid." "What sort of stupid?" "If I tell you, it's mine." He turned the purse over. It was heavier than he'd expected, and it had somebody's initials on it that weren't Fessy's, and he wondered, quickly, cheerfully, the whole of it taking less time than a mouthful, whether he was allowed to want anything stupid, and found that he did not know of any rule against it, and put it in his coat and forgot about it until the strawberries. Tolt came last, because Tolt was old and did everything last, including getting up the stair, which had taken him and Bell's uncle and a great deal of stopping to admire the hall. He put a mark on the cloth in front of Bell and turned it face up with one finger. "Tell me where it's wrong," Tolt said. The table went interested. Bell picked it up. It was silver and it was cold and it had the wet metal smell all money in this city had. And it was a mark. The ship, the 11 dots, the rope border, all of it exactly where all of it went. "It isn't wrong. It's wrong." "Tolt, it's a mark." "It's not a mark," Tolt said. "It's what somebody did instead of a mark. In a cellar for 4 years, and then they hanged him, and we kept it in the cabinet, and I have signed it out on a chit which I would like back before Syl. Bell held it nearer the lamp. He turned it. He turned it the other way. He was aware of Quill leaning halfway across the goose to see, and of his father not leaning at all, sitting back with his cup on his knee, and of Sela with her chin on her hand, waiting to be pleased. "The rope," Bell said. "No." "The ship." "No." "The dots?" "There are 11 dots," Tolt said. "There have always been 11 dots. It's not the dots." "Then it isn't wrong." "It's wrong," Tolt said. "And it is worth nothing, and a man died of it, and you can't see it." "Nobody can see it," Bell said. "Your father can see it from the far side of a room." "My father can see it from the far side of a room, in the dark," Bell said. "My father is a bat." Fessy put her face in her napkin. Bell's uncle laughed without any sound at all, the whole of it in his shoulders. Hessam said, "Give me that," and did not put his cup down and did not look at it for as long as it takes to say a name, and said, "The border's thin at the third turn." He got tired, and put it back on the cloth in front of Bell with 2 fingers, face up, exactly where Tolt had put it. Bell looked at the third turn of the rope border. He looked at it for a long time. He could not see it. He looked up, and Tolt was watching him with his mouth pulled in, pleased about something, and the whole table was waiting to enjoy him, and he let them have it. "I can't see it." "You'll see it," Tolt said, "when you've got his eyes." "I've got his eyes now. Mother says so." "Not those ones," Tolt said. His uncle's shoulders went again. Sela said, "Tolt," without any intention of stopping him. Marn got up to fetch something, and Bell laughed, really laughed, the kind that goes on past the joke and takes the next thing with it, so that when Fessy said, "Give the boy the bat's eyes, he's got 2 spare," he was already gone and had to hold the edge of the table. His father waited until the noise came down. Then he took something out of his sleeve and put it by Bell's plate, and did not make a speech about it, because Hessam did not make speeches, which was one of the 4 or 5 things everyone in Vesson knew about him. It was a graver. It was old. It had been ground back so many times that the shaft was thinner in the middle than at either end, and the handle was a mushroom of horn gone the colour of a tooth. And it was, Bell understood instantly, worth exactly nothing to anybody in the world except the 9 people in this room. "That's the one I learned on," his father said. "It's tiny." "You were tiny." "I was born tiny. I didn't stay..." Bell picked it up. It sat wrong in his hand, and then it sat right, and he had no idea what he had done to make it do that. The steel had a dead grey stripe up one flat, where 40 years of somebody's thumb had been. He put his own thumb on it. It fitted, and it did not fit, and he could not have said which. Whose was it before? My father's. And before? His mother's, and I don't know before, and neither does the ledger, and Tolt has looked. I have looked, Tolt agreed. Bell turned it over. He wanted to know what it did. He wanted, quite badly and quite suddenly, to know what his hand should do, how the steel should move against the die, and how a rope border came from a scratch. He checked quickly for permission and found no rule against wanting to learn. Yet when he spoke, he asked a different question. "Can I keep it on the sill?" he said. "By the bed." "It's yours," his father said. "Keep it in the beer if you like." It'd rust. "Then don't keep it in the beer." His mother at the end of the table said, "There's a coat for you as well. Marn has it. It's grey." "Grey?" "It's a very good grey. You'll fill it out by Syl." "I won't." "You will. Your father didn't fill anything until he was 22, and then it happened in a fortnight, and we had to give everything away." "Everything," Hessam said mournfully. "There was a jacket." "There was a wonderful jacket," his mother said. "It went to the Rences." "They still have it," Fessy said. "I've seen it on a Rents." Bell put the graver in his shirt pocket where it stuck out, and put the bird's skull next to it where it stuck out further, and wore his muffler and had more goose. His father coughed through the second course and apologised for it. Bell said it was nothing. He counted the cough once and had more goose. The strawberries came up from the glass houses at Ond, 6 days on a cart in straw, and there were 9 of them on a white dish, 1 each, and they were the last until Ost. Bell ate his in 2 bites, and then watched Quill decide about his for a full minute before eating it in 1. Fessy gave hers to Quill. Tolt gave his to Marn, and Marn looked at it on her plate like a summons. "Eat it, Marn." "I will eat it later." "There is no later with a strawberry." "There is with mine," Marn said, and did not eat it, and put it on the sideboard and got up to fetch something nobody had asked for. A log collapsed in the fire and Belle's uncle put another on without being asked, because he had been putting logs on in this house since before Belle was in it. The room warmed again. Somebody's chair scraped and Sela started to sing the thing she sang, which was not a good song and was not sung well. Fessy joined in wrong on purpose. Belle's father did not sing, and his mother did not sing. They sat at opposite ends of a table built for 20 with 9 people at it, and looked at each other, and Belle watched them. It was cold outside and warm in here, and the lamps were low and yellow now, and the fog was against the glass with the hole cut behind it. Belle thought again that he would like to see this room in winter. He had thought it often and never said it. Not this winter. A winter. Then he wondered whether he was allowed to want that. He did not know. Nobody had ever forbidden the wish, and nobody had thought to make a rule for it. Sela was still singing. Belle got up and went round the table and kissed the top of his aunt's head on the way past, and she smacked his arm, and he took the beer down to his uncle's end, because his uncle would not ask. They went out at the 8th bell, into the fog which had filled the yard. Tolt went down the stair 1 step at a time with his hand flat on the wall, and Belle's uncle 2 steps below him, not touching him. At the bottom, Tolt turned and said the mark, the chit, before Syl. Belle said he'd bring it himself, and Tolt said, mind you do. They went off into the white with his uncle's lamp swinging beside them, then only the lamp, then only the sound of the 2 men not talking. Sela kissed him. Quill shook his hand seriously at 15. Fessy held his face with both hands, hard enough to hurt, and looked at him for slightly too long and said, 19, and let go and went out without her lamp and had to come back for it, and swore, and went out again. The door stood open the whole time, and the fog came in over the sill and lay along the floor of the hall, and the hall smelled of the cut, of wet rope and brack and the tar off the yard, which happened every year about now, and which Belle liked and had never said so. Marn shut the door and did the lamps. Belle's mother came out of the dining room with the white dish in her hands and stopped in the hall. Your coat's on the peg, she said. Don't wear it tomorrow, it's for good. When's good? I'll tell you, she said. She had the dish against her hip and a bit of Sela's grey wool caught on the shoulder of her dress, and she looked tired and pleased, and she reached up and took the muffler off him and put it back on him properly, over and under and tucked, because he had had it round his neck like a rope all evening. And she did it without looking and said, there, and took the dish through. Belle had the graver in one hand and the bird's skull in the other, and the purse in his coat and both his boots on his feet with new soles on them, and he stood in his own hall in the fog with all of it, and could not think of a single thing he wanted. On the wall by the door his mother had crossed off the day already. She always did it in the morning. She said it was worse to have it hanging over you.